Hello. I think, objectively, Morrowind is a decent game. That may seem like a weird way to start a video that's trying to convince you to play Morrowind, but stick with me on this one. If I remove the bias of personal feelings, I think Morrowind does a lot right, and the parts it does well, it does really well, but it also has more than a few inconveniences that are hilarious and frustrating in equal measure. Taken holistically, the game is pretty decent. However, if you've heard anyone talk about the game, that's probably not the impression you got. Morrowind fans are diehards, and I am no exception. I have exactly zero nostalgia for this game. I played it for the first time like 6 years ago, and Morrowind warped my brain. After watching some videos by people recommending it, I tried it out, and oh my god, I have never been the same since. I have become the kind of person who will pop out of a garbage can at 3 a.m. and go, "Have you tried Morrowind?" Now, unfortunately, the game has been politicized a lot in recent years. The people who like it generally fell in love with it 2 decades ago, and are really not happy with the direction the Elder Scrolls series, and indeed Bethesda itself, has gone in recent years. They generally tend to complain a lot about newer games, and newer fans who've gotten into the series as it's grown in popularity and who like the things that the older players complained about feel annoyed that these things that they like are ridiculed so frequently. And because it's internet drama, it always turns into a toxic cesspit in like 2 seconds, and everyone is yelling at everyone, and it's awful, and I hate it. I am, frankly, so tired of having these kinds of debates. No one's mind is ever changed, and it's just awful and boring. So this video isn't going to touch on that at all. Morrowind and the rest of the Elder Scrolls games are officially now separate series with no relation. Okay? Okay. Hey guys, check out this interesting little solo game that came out a while ago called Morrowind. It's really cool. Shame it never got a sequel. Now, if Morrowind doesn't have any relation to any other game, does it have value in and of itself? I would argue yes, strongly. It does things that are very interesting and worthwhile, and it does them in extremely interesting ways that modern games don't even really try to attempt. However, does that mean that everyone should pick up a copy? Value doesn't necessarily translate into appeal or playability, and for some people, the flaws in the game are going to tarnish any enjoyment you gain from it, and that's okay. I think for the people who can look past the flaws, this game is a gem that will stick with you for a very long time. But for those who can't, I want to save themselves the time and guilt needed to realize that this game just isn't going to click for them. That's where this video comes in. I want to go over the game's strengths and weaknesses, why people love it, and why it can be a massive turnoff for others. And for the record, we're going to start with the negatives because, honestly, they're funnier. So, the game starts with you dreaming about exposition and a mysterious voice telling you cryptic things.
Fear not, for I am watchful. You have been chosen.
I trust them. Turns out, you're a prisoner who has been transferred to and then released into Morrowind for unknown reasons. That's a pretty decent start. It's a little similar to the classic beginning of a different series called The Elder Scrolls. It's not the most emotionally investing intro out there, but it's cool and it leaves mysteries for the player to investigate. Here, let's talk to this Imperial Guard and see what we can learn. Oh. Well, we're 15 minutes in and we've already hit our first stumbling block. That being the dialogue is extremely wooden. The way that the dialogue works is that, as you talk to people, certain keywords will get flagged. These get added to a list of topics on the right, and you can click on them and bring them up to the person you're talking to. Some are NPC specific, but most are universal, meaning you can bring them up to anyone you want. In theory, this lets the player dynamically investigate things as they want, carrying out conversations with an unprecedented level of freedom. In practice, this means that every single NPC has the same copy-pasted responses to everything you ask them unless it's something they're specifically designed to handle. Most of the NPCs in the game are a complete vacuum, with 95% of their dialogue just being a thesaurus of various terms and people. I said in my Baldur's Gate video that RPGs are unfortunately limited to only letting your character pick from specific sets of responses, and Morrowind is a great example of what happens when you throw that principle to the wind. Alright, let's just get through this quickly. Alright, cool. Deliver a package to Balmora. Got it. Now let's just... Oh. Okay, second problem, this game doesn't have objective markers. Fans of the game will make an argument that this is actually a positive, and while I agree with that position enough to argue for it later in this video, for now, I'm going to say that while you're still getting to grips with the game, this is your second major stumbling block. Instead of a quest marker, the game uses entirely verbal directions and has no form of quest marker to help you. In the early game, this is generally fine because you're paying attention to the dialogue, and once you're an expert at the game, it doesn't really matter because you know where everything is anyway. But there will always be this moment. You've read enough of the dialogue to start glazing over it, and an NPC will give you some directions that, for one reason or another, pass right through you. Once that happens, you need to go hunting through your journal for it, and God forbid you remember it incorrectly because it is so easy to get lost. Let's also assume the NPC gives actually usable directions, which is by no means a guarantee. It is very easy to spend a large chunk of your playthrough just wandering the wilderness, and man, that can be agonizing. Almost as agonizing as them. Vagueness doesn't just play the directions. A lot of quests in this game are very open-ended. Like in this instance where the guy wants me to find a book and his only suggestion is just look in rare bookstores, which is an interesting approach to guiding the player. There are numerous quests where characters just want you to do something with basically no guidance or help at all, and if you're a fan of more directed experiences, it can be frustrating unless you're willing to tab over to the wiki every 3 seconds. You end up in the situation where you just need to kind of wander all over the continent just to look for one damn thing you need to find with no help, and oh my god, you walk so slow! Alright, let's talk about the walking speed. The previous problems I described as stumbling blocks. This one I'm going to describe as a slap in the face. The walking speed is trying to roughly emulate real-world walking speed, and that means it's slow, painfully slow. It can take several minutes to cross even very small settlements, and the large cities frequently take a long time to navigate, and the whole time you're losing stamina. Oh yeah, did I mention? This isn't the walking speed, this is the running speed. This is the walking speed. Ah, yes, refreshing. You know, I think life can come at you too fast sometimes, so I'm glad Morrowind comes at me at the speed of a sleepy glacier. I mean, at this pace, you can't even outrun them. If this feels like a deal breaker for you enjoying the game, I'd agree with you. Putting up with this for a whole game would be infuriating. Fortunately, this game doesn't expect you to. There are solutions to this problem, but we'll put a pin in that. We'll get back to it. Anyway, about stamina. The game has a lot of hidden, obtuse mechanics, and the stamina bar is the subject of, well, most of them, frankly. For example, did you know that characters' opinion of you is actually affected by stamina? If you come from sprinting across the city and try to sell items, you will actually sell for less and buy for more. That means that you either need to use the wait feature to wait an hour before selling each and every time, or you can just walk the entire way. Not the option I would recommend. Okay, back to the starting area. We've trudged around town and talked to some NPCs, but are itching to explore. Take a peek around, then you'll hear of a nearby cave that's home to some bad people. Great, let's go in and show them what for! Ah, yeah. So this is the second major slap in the face. Combat in this game is not put together in a way most other combat systems are. Everything from casting spells to hitting enemies with your weapons is determined by dice rolls, which means that combat is mostly based around checking your stats against the enemy. And man, in the beginning, the game is stacked against you. In Skyrim, sometimes you'll be accosted by a bandit asking for gold. If you fight back, this happens.
This is where I would have put footage of me getting the random bandit encounter where like one runs up to you and is like, give me your money, and you say no, and then completely destroy him in 5 seconds, but I can't find it. I spent hours looking. It's not real. It's not real. Just enjoy this footage of Tears of the Kingdom. This is basically what would have happened.
Now, compare that to the same situation in Morrowind.
like to dance close to the fire, don't you?
Let me make something very clear here. Starting out in Morrowind, you are a worm. You are a tiny, tiny worm nervously wriggling through the dirt, and at any moment you can just get squashed like the bug you are. The biggest tip in the game is to quick save religiously. Quick save like your life depends on it, because the game's autosaves are incredibly infrequent, and if you die, it can boot you a long way back. Most games do have a period of weakness, where you're not familiar with the game systems and you end up making a lot of mistakes. Most games will pit you against easier enemies and less difficult encounters to give you time to adjust to the game. While Morrowind does technically do this, your early game combat encounters are rats, mud crabs, and bandits in caves who will murder you in 2 to 3 seconds. There's a bit of variance between the difficulty of those three. Oh, also them, but this variance is actually a goal of the game, however, believe it or not. You see, in general, the game is trying to set out for a more grounded tone. There is obviously magic, but you're not the magical hero of legend. You're not destined for anything. You're just some dude who can cast a bit of magic or wield a sword. And for some dude, a random forest rat is probably going to be much less of a threat than a mugger in armor with an axe. So those axe-wielding characters can probably kill you a lot quicker. That design sensibility is kind of the defining feature of Morrowind, and the last major thing I might technically call a stumbling block. The tone is dedicated to setting a much more slow, gradual, and grounded tone for the game. You don't have a fast travel, you need to use public transport, and not every city goes to every city. Characters give you directions that are weird or confusing or just tell you to do things with very little instruction because they don't have any more idea than you were to get a prohibited book. So much of the early game is spent trying to find scraps of rumors about things because in the universe, the information you're trying to find is rare and actively prohibited. For some people, that is going to sound deeply unappealing, and that's totally fair. For some people, that's a completely understandable reason to quit, and you shouldn't feel bad if that's you. But there are some people for whom that won't be a turnoff, and this is the part where I get to start actually sharing the positives that this game has. That tone and complexity aren't there for no reason. It's there because the world is trying to be more than just a video game setting. It's trying to feel like an actual space that wasn't specifically designed to be a video game. It's got jank because real-world spaces have jank. Porters can't just take you literally anywhere, they have bus routes the same as the real world, and you need to know them and follow them to get where you're going. No one gives you the time of day to start with because you're just some random nobody. You need to earn their respect. This commitment to grounded mechanics might have been entirely a fluke or 100% purposeful, but regardless, it ends up with something I like to call the pathologic principle. Pathologic isn't the only example of this, but it does typify the feeling quite well. Generally, the principle states that mechanics that are inconvenient but grounded in realistic restrictions could help immerse an audience in the experience. Horror games do this a lot. Think about situations where reloading being cumbersome enhances the experience, because it puts you more in the mind of a random guy without gun training. It also hides a second purpose, and that's dealing with these freaking cliff racers, I swear! And that's the fact that they aren't actually meant to last your entire playthrough. They can if you want, nothing's stopping you. But if you're clever, and you know to look, there are ways to get around every single one of these limitations. And that's the trick of Morrowind. It's that it has the best form of power scaling I've seen. The best example of this is the Boots of Blinding Speed. If you take this path out of Caldera and go exploring, you'll come across this woman, who will say she'll trade you an item if you can get her to the town she's trying to get to. Do so and you'll receive the Boots of Blinding Speed. These boots over triple your movement speed. I mean, look at this. But they have a downside. When you put them on, blinding for a reason. In most other games, this would be a novelty item at best, and a taunting joust at the player for what they can't have at worst. But this isn't most games. This is Morrowind. You see, there's a little spell effect called Resist Magica, which can be used to resist the blind. The spells you can find it with are in the wild are weak, only giving a bit of resist magica, which means you end up playing the game in dark mode, which, let's be honest, isn't ideal. The next most immediate path to take is spellcrafting. Craft a spell with 100% magica resist, and you won't have that problem. But unfortunately, it's a constant effect, so any spell we make is gonna have problems. Or so you would think. If you're careful, observant, and do some testing, you can realize the spell effects apply only when you put on the boots, and then stay active for as long as you wear them. You could think of it like casting a spell on yourself with a duration set to however long you keep the boots on. But that means you can counter the spell completely if you just shut it down when it's cast. With some more testing, you can learn that time is paused in menus. So you can make a spell with 100% Magicka resist for 1 second, cast it, then open the menu and equip the boots. You'll resist the blind effect, and now you have the massive movement speed with no drawbacks. I want to repeat, no quest is making you do this. No one points you in this direction, there are no hints or clues. This reward is based entirely on your ability to understand and apply the systems available to you in the game. And your reward for that is extremely tangible. You know exactly what the base movement speed is like. You've been dealing with it for hours. So being able to break free from those shackles, it's a sense of insane liberation. And that's not something that the game hands to you. It's something you earn directly from your own actions. And that feels so good. That is why the early game is such a complete pain. Why you start out as a pathetic, weak creature that can barely fight. Because if you're careful and observant, you will slowly learn how to circumvent every limitation that held you down. And once you do, you know exactly how far you've come. When you can fly across the map with ease, or craft potions that can heal you for your entire health bar every second for 6 hours, or kill a boss in a single hit, you know exactly how much power you've gained because you have something so stark to compare it to. And every single bit of power you gain was from your own understanding. Not from a cutscene, not from a quest, not from the game just handing it to you, but from your own understanding, your mastery of the systems at play. The game starts so low to make your eventual rise to godhood all the sweeter. The rules of the game are built to be very consistent. Not perfectly. There are some instances where the rules are broken for the sake of game design, but for basically everything that's relevant, it's very consistent. Potions, enchantments, and spells all pull from the same group of effects. So the potions that restore HP are doing the same fundamental thing as the spells that have a restore health effect. And all NPCs react to the same spells in the same way. When I was playing a playthrough I didn't record a while ago, I encountered an issue where an NPC was having trouble pathing to places I wanted to go to. So I crafted a spell that allowed me to cast Levitate on someone else, allowing the NPC to just pass through the air to follow me. Is an NPC going too slow? Make a spell to speed them up. Tired of running out of stamina? Craft an enchanted item that allows you to permanently regenerate more stamina. Want stronger potions? Craft a spell to boost your intelligence, or make a potion to do the same. The sky is the limit, it's just a matter of how much information you have and how willing you are to experiment. The story also plays into this idea a lot, but there's a limit on the amount that I can say about it without getting into spoilers. All I'm going to say is that the themes of the story were built around this power progression. On the whole, I actually really enjoy the story being told, even if I find some of its delivery methods to be a little stilted. It makes some interesting choices on both the information it chooses to reveal to the player and the number of concrete answers it gives, which I've seen very few games attempt before. That freedom is the main reason I think a lot of die-hard Morrowind fans are Morrowind fans. The game offers a level of freedom that a lot of other games don't in a variety of ways. It's a game that's willing to let you break it in half and explore interesting and useless ideas without prescribing you to a specific experience. But it's also a game that requires you to work for that freedom. And if that work or that freedom isn't appealing to you for one reason or another, it's a meandering, directionless slog. If you're that second kind of player, there is no shame in that. You should go and spend your time on things that fill you with joy. Tell your friends you love them. Just please take a cliff racer with you. I'm begging you. We have so many. I can't kill them fast enough, please. But if this video has intrigued you, if you want to see the wild stuff you can do in this game, then I'm very glad this video helped you reach that conclusion. Now, unfortunately, the early game will still be a killer for people trying to get into it, because it is very brutal. If only there was a convenient guide to help that early section be a little less brutal.